everybody. It's Kevin Knessa coming to you from the newsroom of The Observer and TheObserver.com on this, the 9th day of January in the year 2024. Sure hope you're enjoying your Tuesday, no matter where it is you are in the country. Miserable day out there, isn't it? And hope you're staying dry and safe, because there's a state of emergency that is going into effect at 5 p.m. today, which means that the state doesn't want you on the roads. So be very, very careful if you have to travel. I was supposed to go into Jersey City this afternoon, but I postponed my plans to do so and will instead do what I had to do today, tomorrow. So I hope if you have to commute at all today, it's a little bit easier for you. Before we get into the news today, Tony Mondero is having some technical difficulties, so he will not be able to join us today for today's broadcast. But if you have any concerns or questions about the status of the weather over the next couple of days, he said that you can always check the Harrison Weather Center forecast, which is, of course, facebook.com/harrison.center. Weather.one. So check that out at your convenience so that you can see what's going on and keep up to date with the latest. Now, the thrust of today's Observer Live will be about the reorganization meeting that took place in Kearney last Wednesday, 1 week ago tomorrow. Before we get to that, Carol Manley is with us. Hello, Carol. Good to see you. And Alyssa Facito Machado is with us as well. So, Alyssa, good afternoon to you. Hope everybody is having a good day, no matter where you guys are. But we're going to spend some time today discussing the reorganization meeting. And rather than me tell you what happened, because it was so chaotic and so disjointed that it was even difficult for me to sit down and to write the recap of what happened. It was so all over the place. It was 2 hours, right? So what I decided to do, even for the story, was to invite anybody who really wants to get a good sense of what happened at the meeting to watch the video of it, which is available at kearneynj.org and also on theobserver.com. Now, before I explain and start introducing to you some of the clips, what's important for everybody to know right from the get-go is that when the meeting was recorded by the town, unfortunately, the video of the actual meeting itself was put into a thumbnail at the top of the screen, a very, very small resolution. And whoever had the computer at the time, that person's screen background was the major site that you will see when you watch this. Now, what I did was I cropped the video, but even by cropping out that, it's so small that everything is going to look like it was filmed in 1978. But the thing that's important to know, though, is the audio is fairly clear. I bumped it up because the audio is very low. I bumped it up to 350%. So I'm hoping you're able to hear at least what is being discussed. Okay, so I have about 6 clips that I'm going to get into, and I'll introduce each and every one. But before I do that, we will welcome in our friends who are here and watching today. Henry Atwell, it's good to see you, Henry. Happy New Year to you as well. Hope everything is well and that you're still at it with Skylar Cab. Manny Ventoso is here with us as well. Good afternoon, Manny Ventoso Jr. You're probably out and about, but be careful. Get home before the storm hits. And Paul Haggerty is with us as well. Good afternoon, Paul. Thank you for joining us these last couple of weeks. It's good to have you here. Thank you so very much. Now, if anybody else comes in, we will certainly put you up on the screen a little bit later. If after these videos we show you anybody has something they'd like to discuss, you can put it in the chat, or you can certainly join us on the air. There's 2 ways to do that, to join us on the air. You have a phone, you scan the QR code on your screen right now, and you can come on the air and be on the air and ask questions or state your comments or opinions about what happened at this last meeting. Or if you would like, you can visit the website bit.ly/obguest Guest, OBGUEST. And if you're at a computer, you'll be able to join us. I might say that would be the easier way, but if you're out and about, you can certainly do it from your phone as well at any point in time. We've only had a few people use this capability, so if you have something to say it today. This would be probably the one you want to do it. Now, the first clip that I'm going to show you comes from the meeting 1 week ago tomorrow, and it was when Mayor Carol Jean Doyle put up for a vote the council presidency. Her nominee was Councilman Jerry Faceto. However, before she had a chance to even take that vote, she was interrupted by Councilman Rich Kanopka with an alternate resolution. I'll show it to you now. Take a look.
Resolution 20. It's a resolution appointing Councilman Jerry Faceto as council president for a one-year term.
I'd like to make an amendment to that resolution, number 20. I would like the resolution to read, resolution appointing Councilwoman Eileen Eckel as the council president for a one-year term. As always in the past, the council person with the most seniority was the council president. And Councilman Faceto is fourth in seniority. So that's why I would like to make that amendment. This resolution 20.
Is there a second?
Second.
Roll call vote. On this amended resolution 20, and this is on amendment. Passes. Right. This is for the amendment. All those in favor of the amendment? Yeah, we're going to do a roll call on that.
Councilman Kanaka,
Yes, for the amendment.
DeCastro,
No.
Faceto,
No.
Zapata,
Yes.
Theodoropoulos,
Yes.
Solano,
Yes.
De Silva,
Yes.
Mayor Doyle.
No. Okay, now we're going to vote on the resolution as amended. And that would be for Councilwoman Eileen Eckel for council president. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Council members Kanaka,
Yes.
DeCastro,
No.
Faceto,
No.
Zapata,
Yes.
Theodoropoulos,
Yes.
Solano,
Yes.
De Silva,
Yes.
Mayor Doyle.
No. It passes.
Okay, first thing I want to just mention about this is a few things. Larry Hanlon put it in the chat room too, and it's worth putting back up on the screen. It has not always been the senior member of the council who serves as the council president. In fact, there is recent history to exemplify this. Barbara Cifelli Sherry, before she retired from the town council, was the president of the council for many years, and she was the second most senior member of the town council. And so when Councilman Kanopka got up to the microphone and said, it's always been the senior member of the town council who has served as the president of the council, I'm sorry to say, with all due respect to Councilman Kanopka, that he was wrong. That's just simply not the case. However, you will see a little bit more of his justification for that vote in this next clip, because you've got to understand it's all he knew. So that's the rationale that he chose, and you'll see that. Now, this next scene discusses that Eileen Eckel was the most senior member of the council, but it's also worthy to note that Councilman George Zapata also chimed in here, and he offered some very valid criticisms here in the very beginning of his speech. But then the rest of this turned into a little bit of chaos. So I'm taking this out of order, I want you to know, but because it refers to the council president vote, that's why I'm taking this clip next. Take a look.
With all the names. It's a little awkward, but we do have
It's very awkward because this was all discussed in caucus. And so it's very awkward that they would come to a public council meeting and then do this. It's very awkward and
I like to,
disconcerting. Councilman, I'm not recognizing you at this point. So we are going to have to
I would
go.
like to say something because you mentioned my name earlier, and I just want to say something about that. You said you had a caucus meeting and it wasn't mentioned for the council president, and I told everyone there that council president, since I've been here, was always the person with the most seniority.
But that was not in writing, and I said that at the time, Councilman. I said that at the time when you brought it up. You didn't bring up a name for it. You said, isn't this
But
by
that-
seniority? And I
By
said, no.
seniority, and that was it, and you put a person's name there, and it wasn't the person with the most seniority. That's why I brought it up here today to make an amendment, and we voted on it. We didn't vote on it that night. We should have. We didn't.
No, we didn't vote at all because it's a
Okay.
caucus and we don't vote in closed. There was
Exactly.
a caucus meeting, so
Exactly.
there are no votes, but
But
there
it
was
was always,
discussion.
it's always been person, most seniority.
You know,
I don't think that's correct. Right before you,
Sorry.
Mayor Doyle, it was, rest in peace, Barbara Sibeli Sherry. And then before, she was not the longest serving, right?
Right.
You were. Am I correct on that?
that's correct.
Okay, so that's the history of
I
it.
said, since I was on here for 10 years, it's always been the person with the most seniority. That's what I can go by since I've been here.
But that doesn't make it right necessarily, because that's all you know. See, 10 years is a long period of time, but you should kind of know the history of a situation before you get into a vote like that. And you should know very well that in a vote like that, you're voting based on criteria that you think is valid, but isn't. That's the bottom line here. That was not valid criteria here. That the council president is somebody who has the most seniority. Yes, it's what he knew. I understand that. But that is not the criteria for council president. You do not have to be the most senior person. Now, if he had just gone up there and said, listen, I don't want Jerry Facito to be the council president because I want Eileen Eckel to be the council president, that would have been a completely different story. And that's fine, because that's what a democracy is. His person, his candidate, had 6 votes that day. Well, 5, because Eileen was, I think, from what I understand, away and on a cruise and not at that meeting. But the bottom line is just be forthcoming about it. I mean, using that criteria is inaccurate. And apparently at that meeting, Councilman Konopka was told flat out that that is not what the criteria is to be the council president. Barbara Sibeli Sherry served as the council president and not as the senior member of the council during that time. So that was misinformation, and that was what he said he used as his criteria for voting for Eileen Eckel. I don't know. Maybe you just go out there and say, I'm voting for Eileen Eckel because she's our candidate, and that's who we want. Not this whole criteria BS, which was not the case at all. So, and the thing was, as I'm looking in the chat room right now, Mike Fernandez says, Mayor said he didn't present a name. He should have. And it was indeed discussed at that meeting. That is correct, Mike. They absolutely discussed it at the caucus meeting. And you're going to see in a future clip, because they said that these things weren't discussed in the caucus. And I'd spoken with so many people who were there, and not all of them are supporters of the mayor. And every single one of them said that this was discussed. Okay, there were other people who were at this meeting who were allowed to be there, and this was indeed discussed. But Rich Konopka apparently did not present a name. And if he had, I think there would have been more discussion about it. But instead, he went about it in somewhat of a backhanded way. Now, earlier I said that I had a clip including Councilman George Zapata. I missed those. It's coming up. There are other clips as well with Councilman Zapata that I want you to pay close attention to, because he brings up some very valid points in his discussion. Now, in the beginning of the meeting, as the first 19 votes were taken, they went pretty smoothly. But it was at the 20th vote that the first amended resolution came up at the meeting. And this is where the chaos begins. And I want you to pay close attention to this, because you will see how it starts and how from it just completely completely spirals out of control.
Resolution 21 is appointing the following named council members for the council, for the committee preceding the names on the calendar year 2024. I'm only going to read those that are the chairperson. Ordinance Zapata, Finance Doyle, Police Faceto, Fire Eckel, DPW Shade Tree Faceto, Water Kanopka, Buildings Faceto, Licenses De Castro, Transportation Faceto, Lighting Theoropoulos, Human Resources and Senior Citizens Eckel, Legislative De Castro, Environmental Theoropoulos, Recreation Kanopka, Insurance Faceto. Do I have a second on that?
I would like to pull this resolution for a separate vote, Mayor. Can't hear you. I would like to pull this resolution for a separate vote, as I would like to amend it. Specifically, the police committee. I would like to add, Mr. Castro to the police committee and swap it with Solano to the fire committee. I think based on their work streams, I think it makes the most sense.
In all due respect, you're a brand-new councilman on here for 1 month, and you can make that decision. I don't think so. We have tried to pull this council together. What Councilman Konopka just did was the first person and first offense to what we've put together. You sat through this meeting when we had our caucus meeting and said nothing. And I know that Councilwoman DeCastro said that she wanted to serve and continue to serve on the fire committee.
She also said she wanted to be in a police committee.
So we discussed that and.
Because there was no volunteers at the time for the
That's
committees.
correct.
So I volunteered to be on that committee. Yes, I did. But I remain on the fire committee.
And also, the senior citizens and human resources. I believe that Mr. Theodoropoulos should be in this committee as opposed to Mr. Faceto.
Again, I would like to point out, you just became a councilman and you can make these judgments. I've been on the Senior Citizen Committee for 27 years, and so I've served with Councilman Faceto. He's an excellent councilman to serve with the senior citizens. So I certainly take umbrage to that, Councilman, in all due respect.
Mayor Doyle, in regards to this, I was not a part of the process. And I had a chance to speak to Eileen Eckel, and she wanted to step down as a chair of the Human Resources and Senior Citizens Committee and have me be the chair of that
So,
committee.
okay, so do you realize that you do the senior citizen picnic? You're willing to take on that responsibility,
Yes.
Councilman?
Yes,
So you're suggesting that Councilwoman Eckel come off senior citizens and
Yes.
you go on?
yes,
Okay, you'll go on as second,
as chair.
as chair. Okay. I don't have a problem with that one. I do have a problem, though, with trying to switch out Councilwoman DeCastro, who has served on the fire committee. I do have an issue with that. So on these committees, Councilwoman Eckel has agreed to come
Yes.
off and you go on.
Yes,
And on fire, you still want to serve on the fire committee, is that not
That's
correct?
correct. And I don't have a problem serving on both police and fire. Initially at the meeting, there was no volunteers for the police.
And that's
And
correct.
that's why I volunteered.
from
On
my
that committee.
understanding.
Okay, so the way it stands
You weren't
on
there.
police now is Councilman Faceto is the chair, Councilman Knopko is second, and Councilman Solano is the third. Are we good with that? Do I have to take a vote?
Okay, so now I'm going to put this back on the screen because this is what Mike Fernandez posted while the clip was going, saying something at the caucus would have prevented this. And he's right. There were opportunities for all of this to be hashed out before that meeting on Wednesday. But nobody spoke up about this. Councilman De Silva, from what I understand, again, I was not there, so I cannot attest to being there. My knowledge is from people who were there, was that he had the opportunity to bring up these amendments to having Councilwoman DeCastro go to police and Councilman Solano go on the fire committee, but that didn't happen at the caucus meeting. And since it didn't, they waited until the meeting on Wednesday to do all of this. And that's what caused all of this confusion. This could have and should have been mapped out before getting into that room at Town Hall on Wednesday, and it did not. It doesn't make the town council look good. Now, if it was discussed at the caucus and there was a disagreement, then okay, then bring it up at the meeting. That's exactly right, Mike. That, I think, was where most people who are upset about the way this went feel about it, that it was discussed, but it sounded like the mayor was caught off guard because, from what I understand, she was indeed. Now, I don't know with 100% certainty because I can't say that. I wasn't there. But every indication is that they had every opportunity to discuss this in caucus and chose not to. And I think that means it was a deliberate attempt to do what they did. If Councilwoman Eckel had a suggestion to step down and be replaced, why didn't she bring it up at the caucus or send an email to Mayor Doyle knowing that she would not be attending the meeting? That's another valid question, Larry. You know, I'm sure by then, this caucus meeting, the aforementioned caucus meeting, took place in the last week of December. In fact, I think it was like the 29th of December. I'm not going to say that with 100% certainty. But she had to know she wasn't going to be there on January 3rd. So these were all things that could have come up but didn't. Now, further, this is where the absurd comes into play. This is nothing short of absurd. The reason that Councilman De Silva wanted to make these changes is because he knew that Councilman Solano wanted to be on the fire committee. Here's his rationale for wanting to be on the fire committee. Judge for yourself.
What I suggested was to replace Solano with DeCastro. Solano will go to the fire committee, and DeCastro would go to the police. That's based on their work streams. That's based on the interest.
It's not based on the work streams. Councilwoman DeCastro has served on the fire committee. Councilman Solano just got sworn in, so he hasn't been on fire. So that's what I'm saying. So you, who are brand new, have
Correct.
all of
Yeah.
these great ideas, which you didn't bring forward. And where are you getting that information that it's a work stream, using that term?
It is a work stream because Councilman Solano works for PSE&G. And as far as I remember, Mr. Castro is a registered nurse. Am I correct?
That's correct. That's why
Okay.
she serves on the Board of Health.
Right, but we're not talking about the Board of Health.
No,
right?
we're not.
Yeah.
But what does the nursing have to do with the
Uh,
fire department or
ambul-
police department?
Ambulance,
No, she's
is-
not on that. No. Ambulance. That's Councilwoman Eckel.
So I'm a nurse and I'm a public first responder, and I have worked with fire departments, and I've also served in the burn unit and have taken care of a lot of firemen as a nurse. So I am well aware of public safety in the fire department. As I continue to serve in this council, and I did serve in this fire committee this past year, I attended the events and I attended the meetings, and my heart is with this community and is with the fire and police departments and every single department in regards to public health and safety. And that is my commitment to serve. So any questions on how I serve? You ask?
I'm not questioning how
Okay.
you serve.
No, you obviously had a question about my occupation as a nurse and how I serve. So
Not
I
how you
hope that
serve.
clears it. Thank you.
Not how you serve. No.
And the last one was the Human Resources and Senior Citizens, and that was placing Mr. Theodopoulos as the leader of the committee, the head of the committee, and removing Ms. Eckel. I made a mistake before about Mr. Faceto. Apologies.
I think Mr. Solano wanted to say something.
Yes, I did. Been trying, but you guys cutting. But reason why I wanted to be in the fire committee is because obviously I work for your utility company that's based, I serve Hudson County, mostly Hudson County. And I use the same PPE that firemen uses. So I was trying to use my expertise on trying to, better the fire department on multiple things. That's the only reason why. And I don't have a problem serving the police committee as well. But since I work with gas and fire, we usually work well with the fire department and at my
So-
job.
So Councilman, would you like to continue to stay on the police? I just heard your argument, but under the circumstances where Councilwoman DeCastro has been serving on the fire committee and has done an excellent job, are you asking for her to be removed and you put on? Is that what you're asking? I'm trying to figure it out because it's a little confusing. Maybe Stathis, do you want to step off the fire committee?
No, I would like to continue serving on the
Oh,
fire
see,
committee.
so he'd like to stay on too. So this has become.
All right, so that's where that is. Okay. Now, under most circumstances, I think saying that I understand what the personal protection equipment is a very good reason to say, yeah, I want to be on the fire committee. I do, because if you know what PPE is and how it works, it's very important that firefighters and people in the first responders and in the world of being first responders, it's important to know what the PPE is and how it's used and things of that nature. But when you do it to pull somebody off the fire committee who is a registered nurse and who has worked in a burn unit in St. Barnabas Hospital in Livingston. St. Barnabas Hospital in Livingston. She was a burn unit nurse technician in Livingston. I'm not so sure it jives. I'm not so sure. Okay, one of them wanted to get on that committee, fine. All right, you want to put Councilman Solano on there because of his knowledge of PPE, that's fine. But to remove somebody off the committee who has treated countless men and women for burns and is a registered nurse in that field, it just doesn't sit well. I'm sorry, it doesn't. And PPE, I don't know. You have to decide on your own if you think that's valid enough a reason to join a committee. I guess in most cases it would be, but I'm not so sure in this case. I'm really not. I don't think it was the wisest move to make. But again, we're going to go back. They didn't prepare this. They didn't say any of this at the caucus meeting. And if they had, then this could have all been avoided. This could have all been avoided if those discussions happened when they were in caucus. But from what I understand, it did not. Now, earlier I mentioned that Councilman Zapata brought up some very good points at the meeting, including when he was discussing the disunity and the dysfunction on the 9-member council right now. This next clip is of him speaking, but then it delves into something very, very chaotic, because you will see in just a moment that Councilman Faceto and Councilman Konopka then get into some extremely heated words, the most heated I think that the entire meeting and perhaps that I've seen in the last 25 years from this council. But we start off with comments from Councilman George Zapata, who I think was trying to calm the situation.
While it's unfortunate that as the public, you guys are seeing some of the difficulties, the arguments that are being had with very apparently both sides on this governing body. Mayor, you held a caucus meeting. You invited all of us in good faith. And I thank you for that. You invited us in. We all came in. We had a conversation. But right from the beginning of the conversation, it divulged from being an equitable conversation where both sides were going to be heard equally and treated with the same level of respect, to it being whatever was decided before that meeting went in, that's how it's going to be. And it's unfortunate. It was brought up in the prior resolution that Mr. Konopka brought up, that the issues he's bringing up now were brought up in the caucus meeting. And while I understand that it may not be something that you agree with, it's all of us here as a governing body. There's 9 members on this governing body, if I may. And as we have these 9 members, there's a plurality of us here that are asking to work with the other side. None of us want to see this dysfunction. This level of dysfunction is counterintuitive to the benefits of this government and the promises and the ideals that our founders put in place when they envisioned this democracy. But that also includes having conversations on both sides. If we're trying in that caucus meeting to have a conversation and say, well, we think so-and-so would be a good fit for this committee, it's immediately shot down. And
That is absolutely incorrect, Councilman Zapata. When Councilwoman Eckel, when Councilman Castro wanted to stay on fire, this discussion did not go into deep discussion at all. She was already on the committee. And almost everybody who has been on the committee, we left on the committee and we tried to make room for Councilman Solano and Councilman De Silva. That's what we did, as we did when you came on first round, and as we did for Councilman Theoropoulos. We've done that too. So now all of a sudden it becomes a big deal. I'm telling you.
it's not all of a sudden.
Well, it is a bit,
It's
it
not all of a
is.
sudden. We're
I am
trying to
telling
have
you,
this
We're
conversation.
talking about unity. We've talked about it, and there's been nothing but disruption from 5 and 6 of you. I'm going to move it. We're
Mayor
gonna
Doyle,
move
I
the
take
amended-
exception to that.
May I say something? I'm extremely disappointed at the behavior of many of my colleagues up here. This masquerade that you say, you want to unite this council and you want to unite this community. I cannot believe how you sit up here and lie to the residents of Kearney. I cannot believe it.
Respectfully.
And if you're offended by,
Okay,
Respectfully.
Councilman
I'm not
Zapata,
done.
You're not recognized.
If you're offended by what I'm saying, you're offended by the truth. So are you offended by the truth? Or are you offended by me exposing the truth?
Councilman, with all due respect, I take
You have-
great,
I have
I
no
take
respect.
great exception to what you just said.
Good.
I have no issue with people that do not support me or have painted me whatever which way. I don't have an issue with about people saying in public on social media about me or about my family. I have no issue. That's part of the profession we're all in. But this is the second time you have
Don't-
stood up, excuse me, sir, this is the second time you have stood up in public and have called not just myself a liar, but in a prior occasion, you called the members of this governing body liars. And that,
So why
that
do
is
you lie
that is
to the
unbecoming.
residents of
that is
our town?
unbecoming.
Excuse
And I
me.
take exception to
No,
that too.
excuse me.
Good.
Councilman Faceto proved to anyone
Councilman
here where I
Zapata,
lie.
Not
All you
recognized.
do
I
is
never
try-
lied to
Not
anybody when I sit on
recognized.
this council.
All you do
Never.
is try to disrupt everything this mayor tries to accomplish.
That is not accurate.
That is not true.
Not at all.
Accurate.
That- yes,
The
it
only
is true.
thing we are asking for is transparency, because it's essential in a governing body for
And we have
everyone to be
transparency.
able. Do we? Do we? So this is transparency then. If we cannot speak in a closed space, then we'll open it up and then we'll have a dialogue or discussion. And that's okay. That's part of democracy. That is the essence of democracy, to be able to have.
See, this is where I'm starting to get a little bit lost here, because what you get is Councilman De Silva, a month on the council, lecturing them about this, which is fine. It's a democracy. You have an opinion, you express it. And them saying that Councilman Faceto was calling them liars, but they weren't. But here's the thing, folks. You've got to remember. If they had an opportunity to discuss this in the caucus meeting and didn't, and then get up there and say, this is the reasons why we want to put up X, Y, Z to be on the committee, isn't that in essence not telling the truth? Because they had an opportunity to discuss it in the caucus and they didn't. They didn't. Instead, they waited for the public meeting where there would be chaos, where nobody expected it, and they could have avoided this if they had, in good faith, negotiated at the caucus meeting. I don't think that happened, folks. I really don't. And I don't know. And I want to think that if they were there, they would have had an opportunity to hash this out so that they didn't look as buffoonish as they all did. And they all did. I mean, because there's no exception to this rule. Okay. Each and every one of them did not look good that night. They didn't. It just is a horrible look to have this type of chaos at a public meeting like that when it could have been hashed out. But if that is indeed the case, and again, I can't say it with 100% certainty, but great certainty, I can indeed. This looks to me like rather than a good faith negotiation, what you had was, all right, well, we'll just shut our mouths. If she doesn't want this, we'll take it up because we have the 6 votes anyway, so it doesn't matter what she says. And that's true. You know, and in the world of politics, that's the bottom line. When you have 6 votes, it doesn't matter what the other side really says because what you want is what you're going to get. But don't get up there and say this is about transparency, because transparency would have been saying, listen, I think Councilman Solano should be on the fire committee, and saying that at the caucus meeting. I mean, obviously, Councilman De Silva knew that Councilman Solano wanted to be on the fire committee. So if it wasn't discussed at the caucus meeting, then when was it discussed? At a diner? At a restaurant? When was it discussed? Because obviously he knew, and so did Councilman Theodoropoulos. They both knew that Councilman Solano wanted to be on the fire committee. So again, I'll say it one more time without sounding repetitive. If it wasn't discussed at the caucus meeting, which is where it should have been, where was it discussed? Because I don't think that Councilman De Silva would have been quick enough at that point in time to come up with that and then say, oh, well, he wants to be on the committee. Well, how did you know that? If there wasn't a discussion that didn't occur at the caucus meeting, which is exactly where it should have been. So when Councilman Facito gets up there and says, you're lying, he's not wrong. He's telling the truth yet again. So we've got to be very, very careful of all of this. It is so disjointed that there's really no way to tell, okay, who brokered what deal and why wasn't it discussed at the right place? And if it wasn't discussed at the caucus meeting, when was it? Because obviously Councilman De Silva knew that Councilman Solano wanted to be on the fire committee. Okay, so clearly this was planned out ahead of time. And again, I say this without any knowledge, just I say this with what I've seen over the last 28 years, that this is directly out of the Al Santos playbook. And I can't help but feel that that has some connection here. And I could be very wrong. I want to be wrong. But that playbook then descends down, and this is what you get. This was how he did a lot of things in the early years of his mayoralty. And if you don't believe me, go back and check the minutes from 1999, 2000, 2001, and you will see it. All right, we are getting toward the end, believe it or not. There's still a couple more clips that I want to show you. This one was when Councilman De Silva again spoke up. You know, what they did was clearly they used the new guy. I think that was pretty clear from everything that went on here, because Councilman De Silva did most of the speaking during the course of the night. And whether you get along with him, whether you like him, whether you dislike him, I think it takes great courage to be the new kid on the block and get up there and be the disruptor, which is exactly what he did. Now, I'm not saying that that is a positive trait, but whoever was pulling the strings behind the scenes clearly said to him, all right, we're going to use you, Renato. You're going to be the one who does some of the disrupting. And it was effective. There's no other way to put it. It was effective. You know, I mean, Mike Fernandez in the chat room, De Silva knew about Solano, yes, but the mayor was caught off guard. Yes, same politics showing a lack of honor and respect, not the people's choice. You decide on that. That's Mike Fernandez, and I think he's got a point there. This next clip comes from a discussion about the museum committee, the Carney Museum, which was founded, I think, about 50 years ago off the Doyle family.
Mayor Doyle, I would like to pull this resolution for a separate vote, and I would like to amend it. I thought I would be the liaison for the museum. I thought that we had agreed on that.
No, you're on the board.
So
You're not the liaison, you're on the board for the museum.
I thought you said the liaison when we talked about this.
No, I never said the liaison. I said I was keeping that. I never said that. I never
We're on
said
the
that,
board.
Councilman, ever.
Where is that on the agenda?
Agreed to put him on the museum committee, and that's missing from here. That's just an oversight, Councilman. I certainly had you on there. But not as the liaison. I had you on as a member.
I was under the impression that when we discussed that I would be the liaison. Thank you. I was under the impression, Mayor
You know
Doyle.
what? You can be, go ahead. Let's just move this along. This is getting to be really nauseating to me. Let's just move it along. We're moving that to.
Nauseating.
Yeah, it is.
Yes,
It is.
that's
It's very nerve wracking to have to have this challenged all the time, considering how long you're on the council. Yes, I do.
Nauseating.
Be ready. Yeah, nauseating. That's the right word.
Yeah, it's nauseating. I think anybody, I don't care who you support, would find this meeting to be nauseating. All right. So, yeah, nauseating. And again, it was his actions that led to this nausea. I just want something to be very, very clear about the Carney Museum, that Norman Doyle Jr. and Carol Jean Doyle donated thousands upon thousands of dollars to begin the Carney Museum many, many, many decades ago. And the one thing she wanted was to remain a liaison to the Carney Museum. And Mr. De Silva, and listen, nobody's saying that because you donated money, that gives you the right to be the liaison for life. But you saw a few times where she eventually just said, whatever, just do whatever you want at that point in time. But if you want to know the truth, she is a founding member of the Carney Library Museum and donated tens of thousands of her own personal dollars to its inception many, many, many years ago. And that was the kind of treatment she got back from Councilman De Silva. Keep that in mind. Now, this is the last clip, and it is when the members of the mayor and the council wanted to appoint Ed Kennedy to the Board of Health.
Resolution 27, a resolution appointing Edward R. Kennedy, 55 Halsted Street, Kearney, New Jersey, to the Board of Health for a 3-year term. Do I
I'd
have
like
a
to
second?
propose an amendment on this one.
Oh. Here we go. What's the
Here we
amendment?
go.
I would like to amend it to have Resolution 24R27, resolution appointing Mary Torres to the Board of Health for a 3-year term.
Are you kidding me?
Is there a second on that amendment?
I'll second that.
Seconded by Councilman Solano. I'll move that amended resolution. We'll have a roll call, yeah, for the amendment. We'll have a roll call vote.
Yes.
DeCastro,
No.
Lucido,
No.
Zapato,
Yes.
Theodoropoulos,
Yes.
Solano,
Yes.
De Silva,
Yes.
Mayor Doyle.
No.
I say this with all due respect. Mary Torres, I've known since I was a late teenager, early 20s. She's a wonderful lady. I've known her for a long time. And she was around for the first bunch of years as Mayor Al Santos's aide. But Ed Kennedy has been an EMT in Bayonne for, I want to say 20 years, maybe longer. Melanie, you know better. Okay, she's in there. And I don't think there would have been a more ideal person to put on the Board of Health. I don't think it was anything personal that she would want to put somebody who has EMT training and is a certified EMT on the Board of Health, but she instead was faced with putting Mary Torres back on the Board of Health. And with all due respect, again, to Mary Torres is not a nurse, not a doctor, nothing like that. She's a citizen. So you got to look at some of these moves, and you know that one was very, very political. Ed Kennedy would have been a phenomenal candidate to be on the Board of Health. And I'm not saying either. What I'm not saying here is that Mary Torres would be a bad person to keep on the Board of Health, because she served on it for many years as it is. But the bottom line here is that the move was to put Ed Kennedy on the board. He has the experience, Bayonne Hospital, Bayonne, and that was completely dismissed. And you could see, I think at that point, the mayor was just fed up and exasperated, and that was how things went. There were other clips as well, but those are the ones that were the most egregious, I guess is the word. And I, again, will invite everybody, watch the whole meeting if you want to see more. There's much more to this. And this is why there was so much confusion, and why I had a difficult time putting it all into words this week, because, where do you start? What of all those things, in journalism, you do what's called an inverted pyramid. You start out at the top, you go with the most important things, and you get down to the least important items toward the end. What was the top story of that? I don't know. Was it the vote for deputy mayor? Was it using PPE as a rationale for putting Councilman Solano on the fire committee? I didn't even know where to begin, and that's why we did it this way. And I hope you, I don't want to say enjoyed it, because there's nothing to enjoy, but this was exactly the way we did it. And that's sometimes the way you got to do it. Mike Fernandez said he never knew that Carol Jean was a founding member of the museum. Yep, she was. And Alyssa Facido Machado asks, I wonder how Sidney would be as a councilman. I'll tell you what, after the last election, I think he would have been doing a little bit better than this, I would hope. Let's put it that way. It is 17 minutes past the hour, and that is going to do it for this edition of the Observer Live. I want to thank each and every one of you who have joined us today. Melanie Ryan, Mike Fernandez, Carol Manley is here. Let me just scroll up. I don't want to miss anybody. Eileen Matthey is here. Paul Haggerty is here. And Mama June is here as well. Larry Hanlon is also here with us. And Manny Ventoso is here early on. Henry Atwell. If I missed anybody, forgive me. I tried to go through this as quick as I can, but I want to acknowledge everybody who's here. I'm very, very grateful to all of you for joining us today. We'll be back 1 week from today, and goodness only knows what will happen between now and then. From the newsroom of The Observer and TheObserver.com, Kevin Canessa signing off for now, and we hope to see you back here again very, very soon. Thank you, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your day. Take care.